The photograph went viral for all the right reasons. A police officer kneels on the side of a freeway, arms wrapped around a young boy, holding him tightly as the child cries into his shoulder. The caption said the boy had run from home, that he was scared, that he needed comfort. The internet responded instantly. This is what compassion looks like. This is what family means. This is love. But what no one knew, what no one wanted to believe, was that the boy in that photograph would be dead within weeks. So would his siblings. And the women everyone praised as heroic parents were already planning how it would end. Welcome to Unimaginable True Crimes. Here, we expose the unimaginable, one case at a time. Jennifer and Sarah Hart were exactly the kind of parents social media celebrated. Two women, 6 adopted children, a traveling family that preached love, equality, and kindness. Their Facebook posts were carefully crafted snapshots of joy. Smiling children at the Grand Canyon, group hugs under sunsets, road trips, camping, laughter, captions about gratitude and healing. They spoke openly about rescuing children from broken systems, about saving kids from trauma, about building a family out of love alone. To thousands of strangers online, the Harts weren't just parents, they were symbols. Jennifer Hart was outspoken, confident, ideological. She posted frequently about politics, race, and parenting. She criticized broken systems. She positioned herself as morally enlightened. Sarah Hart was quieter, more reserved, less visible. Together, they appeared balanced, intentional, in control. They lived in Minnesota at first, then Oregon, then Washington, always presenting themselves as free-spirited nomads, raising children with empathy and purpose. But behind that image was a reality no one online could see. 6 adopted siblings, Marcus, Hannah, Jeremiah, Abigail, Devontae, Sierra. Each had entered foster care early in life. Each came with trauma. Each needed stability. What they received instead was control. Inside the Hart household, affection was conditional. Food was rationed. Punishment was extreme. Isolation was constant. The children were often denied meals. They were forced to sleep outdoors. They were disciplined with physical force. They were kept away from teachers, kept away from doctors, kept away from anyone who might ask questions. And people did ask questions. Teachers noticed bruises. Neighbors reported screaming. Authorities received multiple child welfare complaints across multiple states. Each time, Jennifer and Sarah did the same thing. They moved. New state, new school district, new audience. And the cycle continued. What protected the Harts wasn't invisibility, it was visibility. They didn't hide, they curated. Their online presence became armor. How could these women be abusive? Look at their posts, look at their smiles, look at their message. People wanted to believe them. In November 2017, a passerby found a young boy crying on the side of a freeway. That boy was Devontae Hart. He told police he had been abused, that he had run away, that he was afraid to go home. An officer hugged him. A photo was taken. It went viral. Millions saw it. Few asked what came next. A child welfare investigation was opened, but before it could be completed, Jennifer and Sarah packed up the family and left. Again. This time, they headed north. In March 2018, the Hart family USV was seen driving along California's Highway 1. Ahead of them was a cliff. No skid marks, no attempt to brake, no signs of avoidance. The vehicle accelerated, and then it vanished into the Pacific Ocean. When California Highway Patrol officers arrived at the base of the cliff along Highway 1, the Pacific Ocean was restless. Waves crashed violently against the rocks below, churning debris back toward shore. The wreckage of the Hart family's SUV was barely visible beneath the waterline, twisted and crushed like a discarded toy. At first glance, it looked like a tragic accident. Another vehicle lost to the unforgiving curves of the coastline. But within minutes, investigators noticed something deeply wrong. There were no skid marks on the road, no signs of braking, no evidence of swerving or mechanical failure. Instead, tire tracks showed the SUV accelerated, straight, deliberate, off the cliff. Someone had driven this vehicle into the ocean on purpose. And then came the next horrifying realization. No one inside had tried to escape. Recovery took days. The ocean does not give up its dead easily. First, divers recovered Jennifer Hart, then Sarah Hart. Autopsies would later reveal a crucial fact. Both women had alcohol in their systems, but not just alcohol. Diphenhydramine, the active ingredient in Benadryl, was also present. A sedative, something that causes drowsiness, disorientation, unconsciousness. Investigators immediately asked the question no one wanted to say out loud. Why would two parents sedate themselves before driving off a cliff with 6 children in the car? Then came the next horrifying realization. No one inside had tried to escape. The children began to surface. One by one, the bodies of the Hart children were recovered from the water. Each autopsy added another layer of horror. All 6 children had sedatives in their systems, enough to make them groggy, confused, possibly unconscious. The children did not fight. They did not scream. They did not unbuckle their seatbelts, because they couldn't. They had been drugged. This was not a panicked act. This was planned. The image the internet loved, the joyful road-tripping family, collapsed instantly. Investigators reconstructed the final hours. Jennifer Hart was driving. Sarah Hart was in the passenger seat. The children were restrained in the back. The SUV accelerated to nearly 90 miles per hour. Then, silence. No hesitation, no correction, no second thoughts. The crash wasn't the tragedy. It was the final act. As the investigation deepened, something else emerged, something that made the case far more devastating. This tragedy was not unforeseeable. It had been warned about multiple times across multiple states. Years earlier, while living in Minnesota, school officials noticed troubling signs. Children arrived hungry. Bruises appeared. Behavior was withdrawn and fearful. Reports were filed. Investigations opened. Jennifer and Sarah denied everything. They accused teachers of bias, of misunderstanding alternative parenting, of targeting them unfairly. And then, before anything could escalate, they moved. In Oregon, the same cycle repeated. Neighbors reported screaming. Children were seen begging for food. One child was locked out of the house overnight in freezing temperatures. Police were called. Child Protective Services opened files. And again, before consequences could arrive, the Harts packed up and disappeared. By the time the family reached Washington, reports were stacking up. Teachers were alarmed. Neighbors were terrified. One woman repeatedly called CPS, begging them to intervene. She described children being hit, starved, controlled through fear. One child was seen rummaging through trash for food. Another told classmates they were punished by withholding meals. The system finally opened a formal investigation. And then, before a home visit could be completed, the Harts fled again, straight toward the Pacific coastline. As the truth came out, one uncomfortable question surfaced. How did this go on for so long? The answer made people deeply uneasy. Social media had helped protect the abuse. The Harts' online image became a shield. Officials hesitated. Neighbors doubted themselves.
Strangers defended the parents fiercely online. "This doesn't look like abuse. They're loving parents. You're overreacting." The illusion was powerful and deadly. That viral photo of Devonte Hart hugging a police officer was re-examined. The same child who smiled in family photos, the same child used as a symbol of love. He had run away. He had asked for help, and he had been returned to the very people who were abusing him. Weeks later, he was dead. Why would Jennifer and Sarah do this? Investigators found no suicide note, no manifesto, but patterns told the story. The investigation was closing in. Another CPS visit was imminent. The lies were unraveling. They were about to lose control. And for Jennifer Hart, control was everything. Friends described Jennifer as rigid, ideological, unyielding. She believed she alone knew what was right for her children, that outside interference was corruption, that authority was oppression, that losing the children was worse than death. In her mind, if she could no longer control their world, she would end it. Sarah Hart remains more difficult to understand. Some believe she followed Jennifer unquestioningly. Others believe she was equally complicit. What is clear is this: she did not stop it. She did not intervene. She sat in the passenger seat while 6 children were driven to their deaths. As details became public, the internet fell silent. The family that inspired thousands now horrified millions. Photos were deleted. Posts disappeared. Accounts went quiet. People realized something terrifying. They had helped protect a lie. If you want true crime stories that expose how systems fail and lies survive, subscribe to Unimaginable True Crimes and like this video. It helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them.
After the crash, after the autopsies, after investigators confirmed the children had been drugged before death, authorities began the slow, painful process of reconstructing what daily life inside the Hart family actually looked like. And what they found was nothing like the photos, not the road trips, not the smiling faces, not the carefully worded captions about love and healing. Behind those closed doors was a system of control, fear, and deprivation that had been running for years. Former teachers and neighbors began coming forward once the truth broke. Their statements shared a disturbing theme. The children were constantly hungry. They asked classmates for snacks. They stole food from lunchrooms. They hoarded leftovers. Some told friends they were punished by being denied meals. One teacher recalled a child crying over crumbs on the floor, crumbs they were too afraid to pick up because they hadn't been given permission to eat. Food wasn't nourishment, it was leverage. Jennifer Hart believed in what she called natural consequences. In reality, this meant children forced to sit outside for hours in freezing temperatures, being locked out of the house overnight, physical discipline framed as instruction. One neighbor in Oregon reported seeing a child hit repeatedly with a belt. When she confronted Jennifer, she was told, "We don't believe in traditional discipline." It sounded enlightened. It wasn't. The children were intentionally isolated. No friends invited over, no sleepovers, no extended family involvement. The more isolated they became, the easier they were to control. When questioned by adults, the children gave rehearsed answers. They spoke like they were reciting lines, because they were. Teachers across multiple states noticed the same red flags: extreme compliance, fear of authority, malnutrition, emotional withdrawal. Reports were filed, meetings were held, but every time scrutiny intensified, Jennifer Hart did the same thing. She reframed the concern as discrimination against adoptive parents, against same-sex couples, against alternative families. And too often, officials hesitated. No one wanted to be accused of bias. In Washington state, one woman saw enough. She lived near the Harts and witnessed repeated incidents. Children being screamed at, denied food, punished publicly. She called CPS multiple times. She documented everything. She begged authorities to intervene. Her calls were not ignored,
but they were not acted on fast enough. Child Protective Services finally opened a formal case. A home visit was scheduled. This was different. This time, the system was catching up. Jennifer Hart knew it. She had outmaneuvered investigators before, but now the walls were closing in. And for someone who required absolute control, losing it was unbearable. Investigators believe the decision to end everything was made days before the crash. Jennifer stopped posting on social media. The family's routines changed. There were signs of preparation. The children were given medication. They were sedated. They were quiet. They were compliant, and they were driven toward a cliff. Experts who later reviewed the case pointed to a disturbing psychological pattern. Jennifer Hart did not see herself as evil. She saw herself as right. In her belief system, losing her children to the state was unthinkable. Being exposed as abusive was intolerable. Death was preferable to corruption. This was not impulsive. This was ideological. Many still ask, why didn't Sarah stop it? The truth is uncomfortable. Sarah Hart had participated in the abuse. She had enforced punishments. She had denied food. She had isolated the children. Whether she was manipulated or equally committed, the outcome was the same. She did nothing to stop it. In the final days before the crash, the children stopped attending school. They stopped being seen by neighbors. They vanished quietly. There was no rescue, no intervention, no second chance. When the truth emerged, officials admitted mistakes. Reports had been missed, warnings underestimated, delays fatal. The system failed, but so did the crowd, because the internet had cheered the lie.
After the investigations ended, after the reports were filed, after the wreckage was cleared from the cliff below Highway 1, one question refused to disappear. Did Jennifer Hart believe she was saving her children? It's a question that unsettles people because it forces us to confront something terrifying, not just about her, but about how abuse hides behind belief. Because if she believed she was doing the right thing, then the danger wasn't rage or chaos. The danger was certainty. Criminal psychologists classify what happened here as a family annihilation, a rare but deeply studied phenomenon. And one category fits this case almost perfectly: the ideological annihilator. This type of offender believes they alone know what is morally right, sees outside intervention as evil or corrupt, views their children as extensions of themselves, chooses death over loss of control. In these cases, the parent doesn't see murder as murder, they see it as protection. Jennifer Hart did not act in secret. She told people who she was, constantly, through her posts, through her lectures, through her confrontations with authority. She believed systems were broken. She believed institutions were dangerous. She believed only she could keep her family pure. This belief hardened over time. Every CPS call reinforced her paranoia. Every teacher's concern became persecution. Every neighbor's report became proof she was under attack. Reality bent to fit her narrative. One of the most disturbing aspects of this case is how public validation strengthened the illusion. Every like, every share, every comment praising her parenting. They didn't just protect the image, they fed the delusion. When thousands of strangers tell you you're brave, righteous, and inspiring, it becomes easier to dismiss anyone who disagrees as ignorant or malicious. Jennifer Hart was not isolated, she was affirmed. People often ask, why didn't the children run? Why didn't someone stop this? The answer is brutal in its simplicity. They were isolated, controlled, conditioned to obey, physically weakened. They had learned that resistance meant punishment. They had learned that asking for help made things worse. And when Devontae ran, when he did ask for help, he was sent back. That lesson was not lost on the others. Sarah Hart remains one of the most troubling figures in this case. She wasn't loud, she wasn't ideological, she wasn't confrontational, but she was present. She enforced rules, she participated in punishment, she sat beside Jennifer in the car. Psychologists describe this dynamic as coercive alignment, where one partner dominates the worldview and the other adopts it to maintain stability. But adoption is still participation. Silence is still consent. Investigators believe Jennifer Hart was fully conscious during the final moments. The children were sedated, the road was clear, the accelerator was pressed deliberately. There was no panic, only resolve. In her mind, she was ending a story before others could rewrite it. After the case closed, agencies conducted internal reviews. Mistakes were acknowledged, missed urgency, delayed follow-ups, overconfidence in appearances. But the hardest failure to admit was this: no single system failed alone. Schools raised alarms, neighbors reported abuse, police intervened, but no one connected all the pieces fast enough, because no one wanted to believe what it meant. The Hart family murders weren't hidden, they were disguised. And that disguise worked because it aligned with what people wanted to see: a loving family, a progressive story, a symbol of hope.
The truth is uncomfortable. Abuse doesn't always look violent. It doesn't always look angry. Sometimes it looks inspiring. Before we end, sit with these questions. When does belief become danger? How much do appearances influence who we protect and who we doubt? If abuse wears the mask of virtue, how do we learn to see it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Respectful discussion matters here. The Hart family story is not just a tragedy, it's a warning. Because sometimes the most dangerous lies aren't whispered in the dark, they're posted in plain sight, with smiling faces and captions about love. If this story changed the way you think about perfect families, help us keep telling stories that go deeper than headlines. Subscribe to Unimaginable True Crimes. Like this video so it reaches beyond the algorithm's comfort zone. Share if you believe truth matters more than appearances. In our next investigation, we examine another family that looked flawless from the outside until decades later, a single clue unraveled everything they tried to hide. You won't want to miss it.